Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel. We continue with Pirkei D'Rabbi Eliezer. We're starting a new chapter. This is chapter 38. This one's called Lord of War. Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim, shabechu kol haomim, ki gavar alenu chasdo ve'emet Adonai leolam, hallelujah. It is written in Amos 5:19, as if a man flees from the lion and from the bear, and the bear meets him, and he comes to the house and leans his hand on the wall, and a serpent bites him. Now, if you recall, we started chapter 37 with this verse, particularly with the lion and the bear. So the verse, of course, is ascribed to Jacob, and he dealt with the lion, who was Lavan, the bear, Esav, and now we are going to deal with the serpent. Jacob would flee from Lavan only to come to the house, quote unquote, the land of Israel, right? Like we said in the verse. When Jacob arrived at his home in the land of Canaan, the land of Canaan is all of his home. He didn't actually arrive to his father Isaac's house yet, right? It's all of it. When he arrived, a serpent bit him. So after the encounter with his brother Esav, which we learned about last week, we can now read just a few verses later in Genesis 33, 18 through 19. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, his house, his home, when he came to from Padan Aram, which was where Lavan was at, and he encamped before the city. And he bought the part of the field where he had pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 kesitas. Kesita, that's how it says in Hebrew. So Shechem was the son of Hamor. Hamor was the father. He named the city after his son, Shechem. So called Shechem till this day. Why did Jacob not want to live within the walls of the city? Because still there were bandits, and if you're not within the city walls, it's open season on you from any passers-by, right? The Radal said that he saw through Ruach HaKodesh that there was a serpent lying in wait, whose desire was to unite with him. So he encamped in the field that he brought nearby. So when Jacob arrived at his home in the land of Canaan, a serpent bit him. And who was this serpent? This is Shechem, son of Hamor. Now, where do we have this understanding that Hamor was a serpent? This we have in Midrash Rabbah, Kohelet 10:8. One who breaches a fence, a serpent will bite him. This is Dina, meaning breaching the fence. When her father and her brothers were sitting in the study hall, she went out to see the daughters of the land, as said in Genesis 34:1. She brought upon herself that Shechem ben Hamor the Hivite, who is called a serpent, consorted with her and bit her, as written. Shechem ben Hamor saw her, Genesis 34:2. He took her, Genesis 34:2. That means he seduced her with words, as it is stated, take words with you, in Hosea 14:3. He lay with her, Genesis 34:2, with natural intercourse, and he raped her, Genesis 34:2, like men laying with men, meaning unnatural intercourse. Let's continue. As Jacob's daughter, she too was a tent dweller and did not go outside. Now Jacob is known as a dweller of tents. This is how the Torah describes him, right? This doesn't mean that the dude sits in a tent all day long necessarily, aside from the understanding that he is learning Torah. That's what it ascribes to. But you don't just sit in a tent all day long. You have to work. Again, this is a big question of what's going on right now in Israel, what has been going on since the establishment of the state of Israel. At first, it was great. Now it's ugly. When you have about 1 million individuals who, and again, not all of them are necessarily Talmidei Chachamim, who are sitting in the yeshiva, they're learning all day, assuming they're learning all day. Again, I was also in yeshiva. Not everybody learns all day, okay? Assuming they learn all day, but they don't work and they don't pay taxes. They don't do any kind of public or community service. They don't serve in the army. So who pays for their livelihood? I do. The rest of the country does. And this causes great animosity. Furthermore, even if they did want to get a job, they have no skills. A lot of them don't even speak Hebrew. They don't speak English. They speak Yiddish. In other words, they're completely cut off from the outside world. Now we will see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with all the Torah that they learned, and Jacob was a learner of Torah. He was the Torah study guy. What? He didn't have sheep and cattle and maidservants and manservants. He didn't work for a living. He worked for a living. Just to do God's work does not necessarily mean that you sit and learn Torah all day. That means to live well in this world. All the sages from the Talmud, all of them, they all had jobs except like for one or two. These were the Gdolei Ador. No problem. You be the rabbi. Everybody else is going to work. Shammai and Hillel. Shammai was an architect. Rav Papa, he made beer. That's right. By the way, I was just thinking about that. It's like, okay, start a beer company called Papa's Beer. Talmud students are definitely going to get it. But you see, God says you have to work for a living. You have to live, and you have to work, and you have to learn Torah. Torah v'avodah. Okay, this is how the state of Israel was really founded, by those who love her, right? God gave us the land back after all this time, despite whatever agendas are going on. We have to fight for the land and work for the land, pay our taxes, but also you can't forget that we are here in the land of Israel. What a schut it is, what a privilege it is to study Torah over here in the land of Israel. So, when it describes them as being tent dwellers, it also describes Dina as being a dweller of the tent. What does this mean? This is a sign of humility, to be in the tent, to be covered up and not consort with people of the land. When the angels came to Abraham to give him news of a son, their question was, where is Sarah, your wife? To which he replied, she's in the tent. In other words, she's tsanua, we know. Sarah was the most beautiful woman in the history of the world aside from Eve to have ever lived. And she was also the humblest woman to have ever lived, including Eve. The world is a terrible place today. It was a terrible place back then. I mean, we see what happens when a girl goes frolicking about in the marketplace unescorted. Okay? Today is very much the same in the sense of, look what happens when you let your 14-year-old daughters walk outside half naked. I mean, I'm driving around today with an arena, and we're just, I cannot believe this. It's everywhere. Who is the father that would allow his daughter to walk outside like this? And then we see all these articles today that bus drivers, and obviously the left is going nuts, that bus drivers are telling 14, 15-year-old girls, go sit in the back of the bus, not because women have to sit in the back of the bus, take a blanket and cover yourself. Now, is this a religious thing? No, because we see plenty of articles of individuals go. I see it in the papers all the time. It's already so common that you don't see it anymore. Individuals get on airlines, and on airlines, the crew or the pilot will say, listen, either cover up, nobody needs to see that here, or you're getting off the flight. So this is not necessarily religious discrimination or anything like that. It's common decency, okay? It's like no one's going to go to the beach and tell someone who's wearing a bathing suit, cover up. That's where you wear a bathing suit, right? But don't go in something that barely covers your body in a public place where people have to sit next to you. It's disrespectful. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's really disrespectful, and there's no common sense. So this is what happens, right? So the problem today is that the marketplace, it's not only right outside your door. It is in your daughter's bed with her currently. It comes in the form of a cell phone with all the social media on it, bringing the marketplace into your home, into her bed, into her mind. You already lost her, and she's under your roof in your house, protected, so to speak. This is the harsh reality, people. Protect your children. There are predators everywhere. Furthermore, I will tell you this. I don't think I ever mentioned this here before, but when I was living in Las Vegas, I made a lot of friends, or people I need to make friends with anyway. And there were certain individuals over there who started all these organizations regarding awareness. And awareness of what? Awareness of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and all that stuff, of girls who just come to Vegas and they never leave, right? So why awareness? Why not go after the individuals that do it? So I asked the person who was pretty much in charge of this, a person who knows things, in other words, very high up. And they said, You can't go to the police with this. You can't go to the state with this. You can't go to the governor, the senator, because this whole child kidnapping, grown women kidnapping, female kidnapping for sex trade, this goes all the way up, hear me now, to Lavan's house. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so this was already back in 2015. So the only thing that they could do was to raise awareness, because other than that, they're gone and there's nobody to talk to. So this is a thing that was already going on for a while. Anyway, Lavan's house, we get it? Okay, I certainly hope so. Anyway, so like Israel and the Midianites, since Dina would not leave the safety of her tent, what did Shechem ben Hamor do? He brought about other maidens to sing and dance with tambourines outside her tent, or, where you can hear the sound of these drums, right? And why specifically a tambourine? Our sages say that a tambourine can turn a 60-year-old woman into a 6-year-old girl. The tambourine has a very specific call to women, as they are attracted to it, to follow the sound. This is evident from Exodus 15:20. Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel, it's a drum, timbrel, tambourine, in her hand, and all the women came out after her with timbrels and with dances. They came after her. So you see, this works for better or for worse. Today, I guess it's house music, right? That's what I don't know. Anyway, so when Dina went out to see or to behold the girls having a good time, he kidnapped her and he lay with her. Now remember, this snake set this entire thing up, and he used his own women to get this one. In fact, based on what he did, why did the entire city of Shechem, why were the entire city taken out? Because everyone knew exactly what he was doing, and they helped him and they covered it up. Everyone was guilty. He took Dina by force, as she absolutely did not wish to go with him. One of the reasons our text describes this kidnapping as shalelah, it says shalelah, which means, it comes from the word shalal. This means the spoils that one takes, either through war or through deceit. Let's see some examples of this word. Exodus 15:9. Amar oyev erdof asig achalek shalal. The enemy said, this is from the Song of the Sea, the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will share the booty. Deuteronomy 20:14. However, the women, the children, and the livestock, and all that is in the city, all its spoils you shall take for yourself, and you shall eat the spoils of your enemies. Kol shalela tavoz la, v'achalta et shalal oivecha. So we have booty, we have spoils. Joshua 11:14. V'kol shalal ha'arim ha'ele, and all the spoils of these cities. And on and on and on, and there are dozens and dozens of examples throughout the Tanakh, but you get the idea. Same word in Hebrew, the English translates it into whatever. He took her. She was taken. That's when he got a call from Shimon and Levi regarding the very particular set of skills. He took her, and he laid with her. As we said before, naturally and unnaturally, that's why it's called sodomy, because, that's how they used to welcome their guests in Sodom. And she became pregnant, and she bore Osnat. And the sons of Israel wanted to kill her. Who did the sons of Israel want to kill? Osnat, not Dina. Why Osnat? That the people should not say there is harlotry within the tents of Jacob. The brothers saw Osnat's very existence as a stain on the stellar reputation of the house of Jacob, and would forever be reminded and remind people of this terrible deed that had been done. Can we say that this is very reminiscent of what's going on in the world today? Right? This topic comes up a lot. What did Jacob do? And we will discuss it. What did Jacob do? He brought a tzitz, just like the high priest wears around his head. A tzitz is basically a gold, kind of thin gold plate with God's name etched into it. So it's like, yeah, exactly that. So Jacob took a piece of thin gold and he wrote God's name upon it, and he hung it around Osnat's neck, and he sent her away. Now, Jacob didn't actually send the baby away, but rather he placed her in a bush, more specifically in a small tree, which is how she got her name, Osnat, from the word sneh, the same word for bush when Moses had his encounter. Hasneh haboel, the burning bush, Osnat, sneh. You get it? Okay. So, what did he do by hanging this amulet around her neck? He proved to his sons that this entire happening was designed by God. How so? Because if she was unholy, if the child was unholy or unworthy, it says her face would have turned pale and she would have likely died. You can't hang God's explicit name around your neck. But since there was no change, they understood that all this was planned. All this had to happen. Furthermore, Jacob saw through Ruach HaKodesh that Osnat was to be married to Joseph. See, originally it was Dina who was supposed to be Joseph's wife, but she was violated, right? And so that could never happen. But from this despicable act, a daughter was born. A girl who through divine intervention at every turn would end up exactly where she needed to be. And that is to end up as Joseph's wife and the mother of the two tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. You understand that from the line of Joseph would come Ephraim and Manasseh, yes? And specifically from Ephraim, we get Mashiach ben Yosef, aka Mashiach ben Ephraim. In other words, she is the mother of the lineage of Mashiach. From rape, we get Messiah ben Yosef. And from incest, Lot and his daughters, we get Messiah ben David. What's going on here? God is confusing the Satan. He looks less at unholy things, you see. I know this is a tough issue, especially in today's climate, okay, when it comes to pro-life and pro-choice and that stuff, all right? It's very clear what the Word of God says. There's no question, right? Our sages throughout the years have never changed their opinions because the Word of God doesn't change. So what we do when a situation arises that a woman gets raped, God forbid, and now she's carrying the rapist's child in her body, what do? Serving as a constant reminder to the offense and violation committed against her, and in our case, against the entire house of Jacob. What do? Now, again, I have no right to judge or tell anybody what to do. I'm only relaying the truth here. I have my own opinion. My own opinion is based on the Word of God. That's it. I'm not going to come and say, hey, that's between you and God. Do I think it's wrong? Sure. But again, not my place. Now, if we have such extreme examples in the Torah of rape and incest, it's for a reason, you see? Because look at what came from these heinous acts. It is life that would lead and save the whole world, you see? And a lot of times I see within, you'll look online, you'll see debates between pro-lifers and pro-choicers and all these stuff. And a lot of people that are pro-life, they say, I'm a child of rape. My mother was raped when she was 16, 20, whatever. And she made the hard choice to have me and to raise me. And now I'm speaking out against aborting children, products of rape that can actually change the world because their existence is almost like a gift. So in other words, it's a reminder, not necessarily of something terrible that happened, but rather turning something terrible into something beautiful, which is really our entire purpose in this earth, to turn darkness into light. So that's where I stand. That's where the Torah stands. Need I say more? I might, but whatever. You get the idea, all right? Nothing is an accident. And so our text continues and says, and all of this is seen before the Holy One, blessed be He. Did God not know that Joseph would end up in Egypt in the house of Potiphar? Of course he did. So where do you think Osnat, his future wife, would end up? She was waiting for him. Michael, the archangel, descended and brought her down to Egypt to the house of Potiphar, because Osnat was destined to be Joseph's wife. In Jasher it says this, and the king sent to Potiphar, the king meaning Pharaoh, the son of Achiram, priest of On, and he took his young daughter Osnath, right? Potiphar took his young daughter, who was not his daughter, his adoptive daughter, and gave her unto Joseph for a wife. And the damsel was very comely, a virgin, one whom men had not known, and Joseph took her for a wife. It's written in several places in the Midrash that Joseph actually requested to marry Osnat because of the gold amulet she had around her neck. In Jasher, it's written that what Jacob actually wrote upon the amulet was as follows: whoever can read these words, this is the daughter of the house of Jacob. And who are the only people in the world who can actually read those words? Only those who spoke Hebrew, the Holy Tongue. Since Joseph was the only person who spoke Hebrew, especially in Egypt, he knew right away who she was, and he kept it hidden until after they were married. He goes, yeah, I like that one. Give her to me. From Mina Shamayim, it's amazing. Which is, by the way, that was also a great mercy for Joseph, where that was a clear sign that he was in the right place. That everything that happened had to bring him down there to Egypt because, hey, his wife, the mother of Messiah ben Yosef, was waiting for him in Egypt. He had to go to Egypt, you see. Our text continues and says that the wife of Potipharah was barren, and so she raised Osnat as her own daughter. There we go. And we know how the Torah speaks of this in Genesis 41:45. And Pharaoh named Joseph Zaphnath Paneach, and he gave him Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, the governor of On, for a wife, and Joseph went forth over the land of Egypt. Now, we've had this discussion so many times, again, how the Christians get it wrong where they say a king and a priest, and it's not the same person. The governor of On, that's how it's translated, but how is it written in the Hebrew? Kohen On, the priest of On, but priest means ruler, priest means governor. Okay. Again, we see that everything happens for a reason, and many times we see incredible twists within these stories, twists and turns throughout the years that always and only leads to God's plans being realized. We cannot see it. We cannot even begin to fathom it, but God will always take us there if we are walking on that path, trusting in Him in all our ways. You see, it doesn't matter where we go, He will always get us to where we need to go. Now let's get back to the fury of Dina's brothers. Shimon and Levi were greatly zealous regarding the immorality. In Hebrew, the word is znut, which comes from the word zonah, harlot, prostitute, whore. Make no mistake, this is absolutely a biblical term, as we say it 3 times a day. 3 times a day, it's within the Shema. We say in the morning, the evening, and before we go to bed. Numbers 15:39. Vaya lachem tzitzit. This is when we are given the command to the tzitzit. Why were we given the command for the tzitzit? Velo taturo acharei levavchem acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareihem. From the word zonah. And you shall not wander after your hearts, after your eyes, which you are going astray. I guess astray is how they translate it, but that's not what that means, obviously. The term is not only reserved for women, okay? This ain't a sexist thing. Anyone who engages in sexual immorality, it's called znut, okay? As the brothers said regarding this matter in Genesis 34:31, and they said, shall he make our sister like a harlot? Vayomu hakazona yaseh tachotenu. You see how in different translations, one verse changes from the next. You need the Hebrew, obviously. So the 2 destroyers of worlds, Shimon and Levi, aka Chaos and Mayhem, took each man his sword and slaughtered all the inhabitants of Shechem. When Jacob heard of this, he became greatly afraid, and he said, now all the people of the land will gather together upon me and kill me. He began to curse the anger of his sons, not his sons, the anger of his sons, which we can actually read in Genesis 49:7 at the end of his life within the blessings of his sons. He had to separate their anger from first of all, separate one from the other, and then the anger. It worked with Levi, didn't work so much with Shimon. It says, Arul apam. It doesn't say, cursed be their wrath. Arul, what is Arul? Arul atam mikol chayat hasadeh. Damned are you from all the creatures of the earth, as God said to the serpent. Damned be their wrath, for it is mighty, and their anger because it is harsh. I will separate them throughout Jacob, and I will scatter them throughout Israel. So we know that the tribe of Levi has no plot of land, right? Wherever the other tribes are, that's where they are. They're scattered. And where was Shimon? Because Shimon also did plenty of bad things in the wilderness. Shimon resides within the land of Israel, within Judah's property. Judah is a strong one, right? So within Judah, who is almost almost wrapping around Benjamin, because he said, until the end of time, I will be a surety for the lad. Within the plot of Judah, all around, within it is Shimon. So wherever Shimon wants to go, he's got to go through Judah first. Okay. And he also cursed their weapon in Greek, it says. This is what it's Beyavanit. It says this in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, as seen in verse 5 of Genesis 49. Shimon veLevi achim kelei chamas mechrotehem. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Stolen instruments are their weapons. Okay. As the Greeks call their swords macher, mecherotehem. Okay, now, this does not mean that the word for sword in modern Greek is macher, nor does it mean that that macher is a sword in Greek in ancient Greek. Yes, not in modern Greek, not in ancient Greek, but rather from the sense of that it was foreign. Foreign to who? Foreign to Israel. What does this mean? Why was Jacob angry? Why was Jacob afraid? Because the weapons of the children of Israel, listen up right now. This is very, very important. We need to understand this. And I hope the children of Israel are listening. The weapons of Israel are never weapons of war. Our strength does not come from the sword, nor the spear, nor the bow, or the arrow, or the chariots and whatnot. Jacob knew that God is the one who fights our battles, and that God is the one to exact justice. And in one way or another, justice would come. He was afraid since they did what they did, it showed lack of faith on his son's part and could have potentially opened them up to actually getting hit because they chose the method of the people of the earth, the Greeks, if you will. All the inhabitants of the land had heard what had happened to the city of Shechem. And they became greatly afraid as they said, if two of the sons of Jacob could do something like this, single-handedly killing an entire city, right? If they all banded together, they could destroy the entire world. They were not wrong. Now, if you missed this teaching, I discussed in great detail what exactly went down in the land of Canaan right after these events. What happened before Jacob went to Isaac's house. This is basically the 10 elder sons of Jacob, who were no more than teenagers at that time, went up against all the armies of the Canaanites and completely destroyed them. Crazy stuff. Look for the teaching. Just Google within my YouTube channel, go into the magnifying glass over there, it's Parashat Vayeshev, called He Went Out, Part 2, United We Stand. You see, okay, just read that. Or listen to it, basically. It's from the book of Jasher and from the Midrash. All the wars that these teenage boys wreaked on the land of, within the land of Canaan. Unbelievable destruction. So, you see, our strength, the strength of Israel, never, not ever, in our entire history, from Abraham until now, lies within weapons. Look at every single war the young state of Israel fought. Yeah, we have jets, we got missiles and tanks and whatever, right? But decimating the enemy who outnumbered us anywhere between 30 and 100 to 1 in every war? That's insane. Nobody's that good. And that is a problem, especially today when most of the country absolutely relies on our military might for protection and victory. A lot of times, and you hear these stories from U.S. generals who, they're coming out of the Pentagon, or they're coming out of wherever they're coming out of, and they're taking all these old battle tactics from the Romans, from Napoleon, from Genghis Khan, still implementing them to modern warfare. And so the guy actually said, one of the other guys asking, why are we not taking Israel's war tactics and war strategy over the last 50, 60, 70 years? They haven't lost a war, and they did impossible things. And the guy said, this high-ranking general said, because it's impossible. We cannot learn anything from them. This has nothing to do with logic. It defies logic. It's obviously God. So at least someone recognizes it, right? So my friends, tell me, when we rely on our weapons of war, that's not a form of idolatry. No, our Air Force will save us. No, our long-range missiles will save us. And all the other stuff will save us. No, it won't. Even when we had thousands upon thousands of rockets fired over from Gaza, when the Iron Dome didn't get all of them, you have Hamas quoted Hamas saying, we saw the rockets were supposed to fall in Tel Aviv. We saw it. There were Iron Dome missed those. If they would have fallen in Tel Aviv, hundreds would have been killed. Fall directly on. They're trying to hit populated cities, obviously. And all of a sudden, and you can YouTube this. You see the missile about to fall, the rocket about to fall, and then it turns to the side and blows up. He said, their God is protecting them. Their God is protecting them. God is sending angels upon angels to control every single one of these missiles. It doesn't matter. Iron Dome, that's not what protects us. You understand? Sure, it's necessary, but everything comes down to emunah. Everything. Okay, so in fact, if you don't believe me, let's see what God says about this. Zechariah 4:6. And he answered and he spoke to me, saying, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, saying, not by military force and not by physical strength, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Right? We all know this verse. Vayan vayomer elai le'emor, ze dvar Adonai el Zerubbabel le'emor, lo bechail velo bekoach, ki im beruchi amar Adonai tzevaot. How did Abraham defeat 4 kings who led 4 massive armies with him and 18 other dudes? How did that happen? You know what the Midrash says is he picked up sand and he threw sand at them, and every grain of sand, every time you pick up sand, it's like 10,000, 100,000. I read it some ridiculous amounts, and every grain of sand turned into a spear, not an arrow, a spear. Boom, 100,000 spears simultaneously, darkening the sun. Yeah, wouldn't they like to use that today? You see what I'm saying? How could he defeat 4 armies with he and 18 dudes? How did Jacob defeat the angel? How did Israel defeat all her enemies in the wilderness when they were no more than slaves? How did Joshua defeat the 31 Amorite kings in the land of Canaan? How did Samson destroy the Philistines? How did David defeat the lion and the bear? How about Goliath? What, he was really good with the slingshot? Come on, man. And every battle that he fought after that throughout his entire life. Did Israel lift a finger against the 1,000,000-man army of Sennacherib during Hezekiah's reign? 185,000 of their generals were killed. Everybody else fled. How did the Hasmoneans, a bunch of elderly priests, defeat the Greek army? What? No, this is not possible. Don't you see? Old dudes fighting against what? Dozens of old dudes fighting against the Greek army? The Midrash says that all they had to do was to hold on to their swords. The swords did the fighting for them. This is all God. We have to do our own thing, but everything is God. See what I mean? Exodus 15:3. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Adonai ish milchama, Adonai shemo. Our strength is not physical. It never was. And the moment we rely on our strength to save us instead of he who spoke and the world was, that is where we fall. And we conclude this week's class with these words from Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, and the fear of the Holy One, blessed be he, fell upon them. As said in Genesis 35:5, then they traveled, and the fear of God was upon the cities that were around them, so that they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. This has nothing to... And the sons of Jacob, we saw that 10 of them destroyed millions of soldiers. Again, listen to that class like I said. Was it their own strength, or was it God's strength working through them? This is the Spirit of God that can incapacitate any and all of our enemies. God is the only one who does away with his enemies. We just have to make sure that we're on the right side before this all goes down. As said in Isaiah 42, they shall give glory to the Lord, and they shall recite his praises on the islands. The Lord shall go out like a hero, like a man of war. He shall He arouse zeal. He shall shout, he shall even cry. He shall overpower his foes. And it is the only thing that we can and must rely upon for salvation. And that's today's class. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and a Shabbat Shalom. And stay tuned for next week when we discuss Jacob's return home.